So what is hard to get to the US? What were you guys talking about?
Coke.
Cocaine.
Work for Europe, baby.
We were just talking about the import duties on shipments to the US, which nobody really seems to understand at this point, which makes it insecure for anybody buying larger volume from Europe, because they don't know what the price is going to be at the end. So
why is that?
I don't know, transparency. It seems to be a little bit hard and to find out exactly. I mean, if you import something from, I don't know, China or India, do you always know exactly how much you're going to pay on top of that? Because I think there's different import taxes on different groups of
Yeah, it depends
goods.
on what the tariff code is
Oh,
on
okay.
it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not the same for everything. And then you might buy, I don't know, cold rolled steel, and it's fine, and then it's tooled steel, also cold rolled, but then it's not fine anymore, and you have to pay, I don't know, a certain percentage import duty on top of what you're already paying for shipment.
Okay.
And I think that seems to be a bit hard to find out in advance.
Yeah, it's not easy. You pretty much, when you're going to import something, you pretty much figure that you're going to pay half of what you paid for the product itself. Half of that you're going to pay in import fees and taxes and custom charges and stuff. So if you spot $1,000 worth of stuff, it's going to cost you $500 to get it over to you. And
Yeah. I mean,
basically,
especially in Austria, because you have to pay VAT afterwards. So
Yeah.
there's 20% is just going to be the import VAT, which you're going to have to pay on top of the value of the product. And then, yeah, that's probably a good ballpark number.
yeah.
Tobias, are you importing a lot of stuff from the US or exporting a lot of stuff to the US?
Well, for Apex Ultra, we would love to get more steel over to the US, but the retailers are a bit hesitant, let's put it that way. I mean, given the market size in Europe and in the US, I would say that the US is probably twice the market size of Europe, easily in the knife market. And yet we sell most of our steel in Europe. So there seems to be quite a barrier going to the US. So I wish we could sell more steel in the US, because I think the market's there and the demand is there, but the shipping seems to be one of the main barriers.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes a really premium product.
Yeah. And are there special tariffs on steel if you want to export them? Because of Trump, there was this tariffs he passed for stuff from overseas, especially China, back in the days.
And I think it's still the case. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think steel is still on the list. But yeah, as I said, I'm not sure, and it depends on and I think it's also state dependent a bit on how much they pay, because some states have VAT, others don't.
Yeah.
And so they're gonna pay the VAT on top of that. So it's I don't really I don't have a clue, but it seems like they do pay a substantial amount sometimes when they arrive. Some do complain, others don't. So I'm not sure what they pay afterwards when the shipment arrives.
Yeah, I'm sure you've already considered it already, but to have it made over there would probably cut all those problems out. But then you get the quality control issues.
Yeah, not just that. And I don't know if you remember how long it took us to get a proper working line in Europe done, and I think it's very close to impossible to doing this in the US at this point in time without going over there and being there for several weeks to basically, I don't know, keep tabs. And it's definitely possible. I mean, it's a steel, they make steel, but the quantities and the quality are tricky, because the quantities are not super high, so they're on the lower side for industrial production, but the quality standards are actually really high. So you need to find the right companies that are willing to and able to work with the same formats in between their lines, and so you need to stitch together these fabrication lines, because it's usually not one company that can do it all. and that's why it's quite. We've looked into it briefly. I mean, Laren has contacts, and I think Laren has a wonderful overview of the United States steel structure. And when we looked into it, it still seemed quite a lot cheaper to produce it in Europe and then ship it over. Might have changed, I don't know, but it also doubles your stock keeping cost basically.
Yeah,
which is not a joke. I mean, we keep a lot of money tied in stock every time we produce this stuff, and it takes half a year, or from order to fulfillment it might take 1.5 years to get the stuff done. And then we're talking about 1 or 2 dimensions. So it's I'd rather not start it again in the US. Let's put it that way.
How much Apex do you produce a year? In tons or kilos?
Depends a bit on the year, but one batch is about was averaging around 4 tons, and we're on batch 4 now. Mm-hmm. So I guess that, I haven't kept tabs when we released it, but probably around 4 tons a year. Could be true. Mm-hmm. I haven't done the math. I don't know when we released it really. I'm really bad at memorizing this kind of things.
Well, you started developing it in 2020 and released it in 2022, like March or something like that when it came out.
There you go. Yeah, then it's probably closer to 5 or 6 tons per year.
Yeah, that's not that much for steel, right?
No. I mean, for example, Böhler's smallest oven for this kind of quality would be 12 tons. So basically, at that point, you're purchasing a house worth of steel.
Okay, that would have been my question, whether or not it's worth it to have like 12 tons produced, and then you just have it in stock like for years to come.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it even the capital cost is not.
Okay.
is destroying your margin, and then who knows if it's there's too much risk.
Yeah, sure.
You can't put $500,000 on the line, and also nobody would give me the money, I believe, for that.
But if you're now at batch 4 or the 5th batch, then you might have produced that amount already, right?
Yeah, that's true, but you never know in the beginning, right?
Yeah, sure.
So our first batch was 2 tons.
Yeah. But I don't really see an end with Apex Ultra.
No, I hope not. Absolutely.
It seems to be just the beginning from what I've seen, right?
Yeah.
I think so too. It seems to have, a lot of people have become fond of it, and we just want to keep it going and be a reliable supplier in all regards. And yeah, I think that's the goal. Just compared to 125/62, for example, where you never know if you're gonna get another batch or not.
Yeah.
And we always wanted to have this as a, this can be your go-to premium steel. We're going to keep sure we're going to do our best that it's available for the next decades to come, hopefully. So you can rely on it.
But Baker Forge got some, right? Because Baker Forge did some laminates with Apex.
So yeah, right. No, we've had a couple of US retailers, also Maritime Knife Supply, and so there's been quite a few.
So in order to keep Apex Ultra rolling the way that it's been going on, or for it to get bigger, would you ever consider if another company wanted to step in and take over the production of it, and like you get kicked back on it, or is that something you'd be willing to do, or is it something you always want to keep in your own hands?
I mean, firstly, I'm not alone in the project, so any decision would have to be made together with Marco Goldiman. I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. I mean, having a reliable partner who would do the day-to-day business of shipping the steel out, and having a partner in that field could possibly be in the future, but also as it works now, there's always somebody in my shop, so it also works fine. It doesn't solely depend on me anymore, but there's always somebody else there too in case I'm sick or I'm holding a class. So I think we've become a bit more resilient in in terms of that, and there's more people who can, package the steel and ship it out, the shipments, to ensure the quality is there and the reliability. But I mean, all depends on the details, right? But I would definitely want to see Apex to be continued as a reliable source of, the steel that you want to work with.
So if anybody from the big steel companies are listening, now's your chance.
Yeah, Crucible has gone bankrupt, as you might have heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not looking good for the steel companies at the moment.
Yeah, but
I don't know if you've followed the stock market, but also all the European steel plants are basically losing a lot of the value right now. It doesn't look great for the steel industry at the moment.
But why is that?
I think it's probably more difficult than that, but construction industry is down, and automotive industry is down, and I think those are the two biggest player in the steel market. Especially automotive has always been a very driving force in all of the steel production in Europe, as far as I know, because there's not just BMW or something. There's so many companies working. There's the guy who makes the tools for making the machines for making sheet metal parts for the automotive industry. There's such a long chain, so many companies that are branched out all around the automotive industry, and I think it's really hard to get a good feeling for how these developments towards, for example, electromobility or just having less competitive automotive brands in Europe, which is the main problem, I believe, just because in electromobility we haven't really had the greatest answers, and the US and China have just produced. They were basically faster, I believe. And the development, we just laid back a bit too much on the diesel and gasoline cars. And but I'm sure there's more to it. That's just superficial.
Yeah, so I noticed some kind of interesting posts from Tobias, from you lately. You started to show some of the Gold Vein project, which has actually been around for a few years now. I think 2021 or something you started, and now it's just starting to show up more on your social media. Can you tell us a little bit about the project? Because I know a lot of people don't even know about it.
Yeah, it's true. It was basically a no limits project. It was based around the idea of what can you do if money doesn't really matter, whenever you make a knife, obviously you want to make the best knife you can, but there's always constraints. You can't put in 50 hours into a knife and then sell it for 200 euros, at least not if you're trying to make a living off of it. So there's always, balancing between the value you get out of a certain step or material and the added value to the customer. And as a thought experiment, basically I asked myself, what would I make if money was absolutely no constraint, right? And then I came to the conclusion that the perfect diffusion layer, the perfect diffusion barrier for my billets would be gold, because it's copper slightly oxidizes, nickel is slightly allergic. Like some people are slightly allergic to nickel, and obviously it's a very beautiful color. So gold makes sense because it's completely non-reactive, and it also has no solubility for carbon, so no carbon from the core steel can pass through the gold to the outside layers of the steel. And that's how the basic idea started. And then there's a crazy backstory to it, but that's basically how I found the concept and the idea. I made a couple of experiments and found out that I can do it technically, and that it needs more refinement. And through a complete coincidence, I found out that David Wolkerstorfer was working on a similar thing, also still, in the dark, in the secret. So we joined forces and made the first prototypes. And then we asked Abe from Eating Tools if he wanted to join the project, because obviously you want to have somebody on your team who can shine the right light and create the right poetry almost around these objects, right? You're not just making a knife anymore. It's basically a piece of art at this point, or it has to be a piece of art, something very unique, something outstanding in all respects. And I think that includes photography and description and packaging and all of this. So we really extended this no limit approach to everything we did. We had professional photo shootings for each knife, photo shootings during the production. We had a photo book made with gold inlays in the front, hand bound, just the best thing you can get possibly. And the knives come in, very, very fancy, slightly different boxes. One is, for example, made out of bog oak, this entire block of bog oak where the knife shape is inlaid, and things like that, things like that which you wouldn't do otherwise, because it just isn't possible to sell, to charge for this. But it was a project that I really liked, or still like to do, because you can completely change your mindset and you can go with perfection about everything, and you can go completely crazy in every detail, and not care about the hours that run into that. And that's probably the contrast that I appreciate, because my day-to-day work, I always try to find the best balance between, performance and value for the customer and the resources that go into it. So you always want to find the sweet spot where you don't put too much work into it, so it becomes super overpriced, but you still get the best out for the customer, right? And that's a refreshing balance to that.
And so in total, there's been 3 knives made in this Gold Vein project.
Exactly. And as far as we know, we were the first ones to laminate or forge weld gold with steel and contain the complete color, the golden shine, because it does want to turn white, which is also why we had to make around 10 prototypes in total until we had the perfect tone of the gold dialed in through our process, basically. And as far as we know, we were the first ones to achieve that, and I think this is also an important part of the brand, because it's not easy to do, obviously.
Yeah.
When was that, Tobias?
I'm really bad with dates, but we will have to scroll back a bit. It should be somewhere.
But it was a few years ago, right?
Yeah, it was a few years ago. I think Tyrell Forge did a YouTube video 2 years, a bit later. That was last year, so he also got a good result. He took a very thick line, as far as I remember, and had pretty good results with it. Yes, but we were first. I know that much.
Yeah.
At least in this regard, at least his video came out way later.
As far as I know, I think it was 2021, the first one that David made, or the finished one. But I'm sure you guys had prototypes before that.
Yes, we did. Our first post was on 22nd October 2021, which basically was the date where the blade was already completed. So probably half a year earlier than that would be realistic. I'd have to go through my notes. I don't remember.
Why does it want to turn white to gold? Why does it do that?
Well, the color of gold changes with alloying elements, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's rosé gold and there's white gold and all of this. And it doesn't take much. It just takes a few % of, for example, nickel or iron or copper to change the color. So as soon as you start forge welding steel to gold, you're very close to the melting point of gold. So the diffusion rates are pretty high. And that means you have to be in contact with steel, right? And you have a thin piece of gold. So the diffusion wants to take place, and the iron wants to go into the gold, and it's going to discolor the gold very quickly. And that was basically the main challenge that we had. We got it to stick very quickly. That wasn't the issue. But keeping the gold completely golden was trickier than you might suspect.
But how did you achieve that? Does it depend on the core material you use, or does it depend on temperature?
I'm afraid I can't really say that.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Top secret.
Yeah. No. We'll keep that under the hood.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't notice anywhere in the descriptions that you named what kind of steel you used, and there must be a reason.
The core steel is basically Apex Ultra. The core steel is Apex Ultra. The core steel and the cladding were basically melted in-house just for the knife, so they're one of a kind. But the composition of the core steel is heavily leaning in Apex Ultra direction.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's the core material is not the one where we made ourselves, or where we gave ourselves leeway for laminating it. That's actually what probably made it a lot harder, because Apex Ultra does deform a lot harder than ADCR V2, for example. So if you take ADCR V2, you're going to forge quicker, it's going to deform quicker, it's going to be less stress on the bond, which means you have probably an easier time forge welding it with gold. I mean, for sure. Anybody who has done copper, kumai or stuff like that, whenever you're starting to use harder, more tougher alloys for cladding or for the core steel, your life is getting a lot harder, because the material creates tension on the bond, and if the bond is not set right in the beginning, it does want to open up, right? And you don't want that. If you're putting close to 5 digits worth of gold into a knife, into a billet, and then you forge it out.
That's the reason why sometimes you have a kumai or a nickel-mai billet all ready to go, and it's been hardened, and you come back to it the next day and it's split on you. That's just from all the tension that the two different materials are under.
Where did it split? That's a question.
I mean, usually right at the diffusion layer.
Right? Really? I haven't had that happen, to be honest.
Really?
No, I haven't. The few times where something split, it was actually through the core. So the forge welded bonds were perfectly fine. But it split the core because the cladding material was either a ferritic grade or an austenitic grade. So it means it has completely different thermal contraction and expansion compared to the martensitic core. So when you quench it, you do induce a lot of stress. And then, especially on the thicker pieces, your upper part of the spine close to the handle, where you might have close to 5 millimeters or something, it does want to rip itself apart. And then the most extreme cases, I literally had a knife split into 2 knives, like the whole silhouette.
Entirely
through the core. Entirely through the core. I keep it in the shop because it's fun to
I've seen that
to
one.
show.
Yeah.
I mean, it just shows you how much internal stress there can be to literally destroy itself.
But that would have been my next question. How much gold is in one of these knives?
In the knives we've made, it's close to 5 digits in each knife.
So 5 digits, that's close to 10 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit. Okay.
So we do keep a bucket when we grind.
Yeah.
when you grind Gold Vein knives, there's a bucket. There's a special bucket underneath, and we keep every grain, every dust particle we can find, and eventually we're gonna bring it back to Augusta and ask them for I don't know, 20 euros back or something.
Would silver also work as a diffusion barrier?
I believe so. I've done the research. I can't quite remember, but I think it works, yes. The only thing why I didn't do it is because it doesn't really make sense.
It looks like nickel.
It looks like nickel, and...
Of course, but it's also non-allergic or less allergic than nickel is, right? So
it is, but it does oxidize, and it does leave a bit of a taste.
Okay.
If you've ever eaten an egg with a silver spoon, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Everything else is fine, but don't eat an egg with a silver spoon.
But so does copper, right? But I mean, copper is pretty popular as a diffusion barrier these days.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't had any taste difference from the Kumai knives that I have at home, but yes, theoretically, especially with acids, it can react. I think you're gonna be fine with silver, absolutely. And there's also basically the steel is less noble than the copper or silver line that your theoretical Gomai billet has, and so the electrons will wander from the steel towards the diffusion barrier to keep the diffusion barrier basically alive, and it's basically the less noble material sacrifices itself and starts to oxidize for the more noble material. It's basically it's a form of galvanic corrosion, or so anyway, what I'm saying is the layer itself, while it's more noble than steel, will not corrode easily because the steel is less noble, so it will always corrode first, right? Yeah, it's called cathodic protection. But I don't think that means much to anybody.
No, I don't think I've ever heard it explained that way before.
I mean, it's the same why the cars are zinc plated, right?
Yeah.
The zinc oxidizes for the steel basically, and it creates an oxide layer that is that part is different, but
it's very easy to remember the way you explained it. The less noble material sacrifices itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
It sends the electrons upwards to the more noble material.
Yeah.
Just like in war, Yeah. The king is not dying; it's the soldiers dying. The less noble people.
That's what I thought. Yeah. What about brass as a diffusion barrier? Because brass might look similar to gold.
Brass is not fantastic because of the zinc in it.
I know, but
yes.
would it work as a diffusion barrier?
I think I have. I was gravitating towards bronze when I did the research. I tried brass once. I welded the billet and it was already a mess. There's zinc fumes everywhere, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing this." So, yeah. But then I didn't. If I make bronze billets that look like a golden line, I would kind of be sabotaging my own design in Gold Vein. So
of course, yeah.
I didn't want the people to get too confused, so we either do copper or nickel, or it's gold when I do it. To not get confused that I do both.
Yeah, what I meant is that it might be an interesting question: what kind of diffusion barriers are possible at all? Right? See, that's what I meant.
Yeah, basically, you just have to look at the solubility of the material for carbon. And if it doesn't have a solubility for carbon, then there's no way it's gonna go through because it can't pass, right?
Yeah.
You can get creative. Platinum, palladium, all kinds of things.
Unobtainium.
Yeah, titanium is quite reactive, but that would probably work for another reason. But I'm not 100% sure. Titanium does want to form carbides very eagerly, So you're gonna have a titanium carbide layer in between the titanium and the steel. I did a research project on a solder alloy they called it active solder. So you add very reactive elements like titanium to the solder, so it basically bonds more actively with the substrate, so with the two pieces that you want to get together. And by adding some of these very, very reactive elements, you could even solder ceramics with titanium, for example. Crazy
cool.
things that would be would be impossible with your standard silver solder.
That's crazy. That'll come in handy when you break mom's vase. So what about Tobias's knife making shop? You do a lot of classes, and we had talked once before, maybe you introducing some newer classes. Maybe
yeah,
more.
Actually we did. We're quite active in that regard. My team has grown quite a bit, I think, since we last spoke. So it used to be me and Peter, and Peter is mostly doing office work and shipping and bookkeeping on the financial side. And since January, there's also Flo, who is helping me a lot out in the forge with production of the steels. So in terms of the laminates, Damascus, Sanmai, Gomai, we do a lot of laminated steels with Apex Ultra Core, obviously, and that's where Flo spends a lot of his time, and also everywhere else as it is in a small company. And since December, Sam has joined the team. Sam is young. He's basically doing an apprenticeship with us. So we've grown quite a bit, and there's also more classes now. Exactly. There's we call it Jausenmesserkurs. So that means it's like you make a rustic table knife. So it's a fully forged, brute forged knife, and it's like a 6-hour course. So it's a quicker, shorter version of our full 2-day forging class, which is, I think, perfect for the guys who just want to step into knife making and forging for the afternoon and want to get a feeling for it. And it's also a great diversification and just differentiation for the people who've already done a classic bladesmithing class, because it's way less finishing work. It's less, there's no drilling scales or filing.
Yeah, no handle work.
Yeah, no handle work, no attachment, no alignment, none of that. There's forging, and then there's heat treatment, and then there's a bit of grinding. But it is way more focused around forging because the entire handle is forged. So I think that was a good addition to the portfolio of classes. And then our standard class, or our all-time favorite, is the 2-day bladesmithing class. And then we've added, because there was a lot of questions about making Damascus in the class, and I wanted to do it a little bit differently than the other guys around here. So I made a 3-day Damascus class where you're actually gonna forge a Damascus billet. You're gonna fold it, reforge weld it up until over 100 layers, and then we forge out an integral knife from that billet that you made.
Oh,
and
nice.
Then you finish out basically a big ass integral knife. So I think we're gonna need the 3 days. I haven't actually taught the class yet. It's just a concept, and we have dates set up. I think the first is gonna be in a couple of months. I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be awesome. And we've also been upgrading our power hammer. Power hammers. We got 3 now, and 2 more coming, most likely. 1 or 2 are more coming now. So we're gonna have a hydraulic press and then 4 or 5 hammers. So there's gonna be plenty of hammers for people to work on with all kinds of different dies.
Which ones did you get, Tobias?
We have the ones that we have. You already know, just for the audience.
The new ones.
Yeah. So the old ones are all Reiter and Kuhn with 34 kilo ram weight. So they're basically the pocket hammer. that you can drive around on your jack, and we have 2 Bechet coming now, 140, 160. Flo actually bought them basically on his own, and he's fixing them up, and we're doing steel foundations because I'm I'm renting the shop, and I'm not sure if this is gonna be the shop where I'm gonna be for all eternity. So we're gonna make them completely out of steel, so they are heavy enough, and we don't have to dig into the ground and do the whole thing that Albert just did. It's a bit more expensive, but yeah, I didn't feel like digging into the ground.
You mean the steel foundations are a bit more expensive?
Yes, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Just the material, yeah, just the material cost for sure. If you include all the labor and everything, I don't know.
Yeah, but we had to. It wasn't just concrete. We had to buy. We had to buy the foam, right? The Sulamer, and it was like I think $5,000 alone for 2 power.
Really?
Hammers. Yeah. So.
Fuck.
We had to put foam underneath the concrete, and it's super expensive. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you win. Yours is more expensive. I didn't pay that much. Yeah, but also I decided that we're gonna go on a rather light foundation, because otherwise it doesn't make sense anymore. Just the volume gets too big. So we take steel because it has a much higher density than concrete. It's about 3 times the density than concrete. So your volume is going to be 3 times smaller, which is good. Mm-hmm. But as you know, the Bechet don't allow you can't put a 1 meter foundation underneath them. They don't work that way. They're built way too high. So with the limited room that we have, we just jam as much steel underneath them to get, to at least 20, I think it's about 1 ton for the 40 kilo and 1,300, 1,400 for the 60. So it's definitely smaller than what I would have gotten for if we did concrete.
Of course, yeah.
So it's gonna be a compromise. I hope they aren't too chumpy. I hope they're gonna be okay. But yeah, it's a compromise. That's the price we have to pay for not digging into the ground.
It's a 2-piece hammers you're getting. Like the anvil is separate from the hammer frame. You know what I mean?
It's bolted into it.
Okay.
Yeah, but so even the Reiter aren't bolted onto them, so it's not.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, but there's Bechets that have a separate anvil, right? So you have to lift the hammer frame over the anvil to set everything up.
No, they're basically on the front,
okay.
But they're separate, but attached directly onto so there's no ring around them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what I meant. Yeah, like the one Christoph Feichtel has is a 2-piece hammer, right? The big one.
Yeah. I think you have to go for concrete on these ones.
Yeah, I think so too, because we own I think 5 2-piece hammers, and they all have a concrete foundation.
I mean, it's a big experiment. Maybe it was the wrong decision. We'll see. Then we'll just have a lot of steel to put into the concrete.
Yeah, but you don't need to put that much steel into the concrete.
Especially in your big chunks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what you can always do is put the right kind of Sulamer underneath your steel. Right.
And so that's my experience with the Reiter. That just helps so much. It is a couple of €100 per hammer, but if you have the right foam underneath there, the hammer still jumps a bit, but you don't have the vibration into the ground. You don't have the Körperschallübertragung into the next village and all of the complaints.
Yeah, I don't think you have the right ceiling height to lift the hammer up over the top of the anvil if you had that style in your shop. That would be quite a task.
Yeah, and we don't have a great crane just moving them from the lower storage unit up to the workshop unit. We're not quite sure how we're going to do it, just because all the lifting equipment we have is too small for it. So I might have to buy a new crane thingy, something, just so we can move it.
You can rent the forklift. That's what we did in our old shop. So we rented a forklift.
Yeah, our neighbor has a forklift, but that only gets us to the door, basically. And then we have to move it inside of the workshop as well. And our pallet jacks are, I think, rated to 2 tons, and on the big Bichet, we're definitely going to be way above that, and then we have to lift the hammer onto the foundation. We'll figure it out, but yeah.
We on our 150 kilo Bichet, we used 3 of these, what's it called, pallet jacks.
Yeah.
And like 5 people, and it worked. But we broke one of these pallet jacks. So
yeah, that's the price you pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we moved the big rolling mill, I mean that beast is 7 tons or something. We actually had a specialized company to help with the transport. Obviously, there's no putting it on the back of your van anymore. And then they had these steel rollers that you can put underneath, and they have special hook thingies, basically like a car jack. But you can get them underneath, lift them a little bit, get the rollers in. So you have all of the machine on rollers, which is already great. And I think we were close to 8 or 9 people, but we couldn't pull it. So what we did, we drove with the forklift into the shop, cleaned out the back, and then we used it basically like a horse to pull in the rolling mill. So we had 8 people pushing and the forklift pulling the whole thing just to move it. We also don't have the best floor. If you have, very smooth concrete floor, I think it's not a big problem.
Yeah.
But if you have a few, 3 centimeters is huge if you're having a 7-ton rolling mill on top.
Yeah. It's always wild to move machines that size.
A very stressful day.
And you can only lose. If anything goes wrong, you can only lose.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, your whole day just is done with moving a machine from A to B, and worst case, you're gonna have weeks of repair if something goes bad.
Oh, or you're dead. If it falls onto you.
You're dead. Yeah, that's true. Then at least the bad week ended quickly.
Yeah, and you don't have to repair the machine yourself.
Yeah, but not everybody's as lucky as Albert. He's got a nice flat concrete floor and a huge crane.
Oh, nice.
Move shit around everywhere.
Yeah, but we've been looking for more than half a year to find this shop. So
yeah,
and
yeah, but I mean, I've probably been looking for a year now for an alternative. I don't know, in the region it's really hard to find something suitable. Did you purchase, Albert, or do you rent?
No, we are renting the place.
Okay, yeah. I'm in the situation now, and
rent's very expensive. So
I know Salzburg. You can forget Salzburg. That's why I moved away from Salzburg, is so I can afford a shop.
Yeah.
Sad but true.
I mean, with the rent we pay, we could have almost bought the place, right? But
yeah.
So what advantage do you have of staying out in Salzburg, Albert, other than that you guys both live there or close by?
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason. And okay. One reason. And the other reason is Salzburg is very central, right, in Europe. So when we do knife making classes, we get people from all over Europe, whether it be Germany, Hungary, Italy, Switzerland. So it's and it's a very nice place to be, also to visit, right?
Right.
So people usually stay longer when they come from far away. So they spend like 2 or 3 more days here and do some sightseeing. So and of course there's tons of very wealthy people around here because it's so expensive. That also helps. So no, we're not moving.
Not moving anymore. Just poured 40 tons of concrete. We're not moving.
No, that's not 40. It's in the hundreds. But yeah.
Oh fuck. Yeah.
We're not moving. If that's what you're asking, Keith.
Did you get a contract that's protects you from being kicked out?
We got 5 years.
5 years, okay.
But we would have gotten 10. But we only signed a contract for 5 years because we didn't know because with these industrial spaces, you're bound, right? So if you want to move out earlier than like your contract says, you still have to pay, right? So they can.
Well, you can always negotiate. I've heard a guy who had the right to stay 10 years, but he didn't have to. He had a 6-month which I found, phenomenal. But obviously both parties have to agree. I never would have thought about it, but next time if I'm renting a place, it would be a contract like this where I'm like, okay, you can't kick me out for the next 10 years, but if I want to go, I'll be gone in 6 months or something like that, or maybe in a year, whatever's reasonable.
But I think our landlord would not have agreed to that.
Yeah, because I can imagine.
We can't. I mean, we can't leave in 6 months, but we're still gonna dig up all your floor and everything.
Yeah.
There's just gonna be more floor now, right?
Yeah.
It's better now.
Yep. But the landlord's always gonna find somebody else to rent. I don't think that's gonna be a problem.
Now, for that price, it's gonna be tough because we're paying premium, so we're paying twice as much as our neighbors do. So.
Really?
Yeah. The deal wasn't that great, but still, we had to find something quickly.
Yeah, it's always a pain in the ass. So ever since I started, even if I was just making knives in the basement of my dad or on the coal forge in the backyard of my dad, just having the place where you can work and where you can do the thing that you love has always been an issue. The noise, it's never easy. I think it's unfortunate. It's never easy.
So what's the biggest drawback of your shop right now, Tobias? Is it the heating, cooling issues, or what do you?
Yes. I think in the winter it's really, we can't heat the shop, so we can only heat 2 segments of the shop, but the main floor or the main area is basically not heatable. And so there's the ceiling is basically a few pieces of wood, and then there's black tar on top of that. Even if you have 5 burners on in the gas forge, and the whole shop is heated up for a little bit, within half an hour or an hour, it's basically back to outside temperatures, just because of all of the heat disappearing. And to change that would be, I don't know, 15K or something to get an insulation on top of that. And then again, I think I have about a year to, safety. So if my landlord decides to sell or something or go bankrupt, or, you don't know what's going to happen with them. Then I have it 1 year and then I have to be gone. So it's already going to be hard enough to find a place, do the Betriebsanlagengenehmigung, and then, fix up the new place and move there. But just imagine you have your ceiling done, you have a couple of nice windows now, you have everything insulated, and then the landlord's going to be, but I'm going to kick you out because the next person is going to pay more because you have to leave everything inside. And he's getting, a worse contract. So he might be paying €1 more per square meter, and I fixed up the place, and it's completely legal. So I'm in a shitty position in regards to making my workshop better, because it's not valued. It's basically burning money until I have a different agreement or I find a different shop that I can actually buy, which would be the dream at some point. It probably has to wait a bit longer, but maybe someday, and then I can get the big hammers as well and the big foundations. Until then, we'll just try to get by and not freeze to death in winter.
And now it's not only you have a newborn, a year-old.
Yeah, Nora is 9 months now. Yep.
9? Okay.
Yeah, there's less time in the shop, unfortunately, at the moment. I mean, fortunately for the family, but there's always too little time at work, and there's too little time with the family, and too little time for sleeping. So.
But that's why you have employees now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's not exactly how it works in the beginning, unfortunately.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you should work more so you can actually feed them through, too. Yeah, it takes a bit. I think one guy once said it takes about a year until an employee will pay his own wage, and I think that's not untrue.
How did you find your employees, though? Did you know them before?
Yeah, basically they both. Flo did a couple of classes with me. He's from the region, and then you could tell, he's super excited about bladesmithing and everything, and he was trying to find a place where he could do some things. So I had offered to him if he wanted to, do something here in the shop, he could help me out a bit and do some of his own things every once in a while. And he came over to the shop about once a week for a few months, and then it just came to be that I was looking for the first employee, and he was looking to leave the company, and that's basically how it happened. And I already knew him, and I knew we would work good together. So that worked out perfectly. And Sam basically approached me with his plan, and that still a bit too fresh to say, but I think we're going in a good direction.
Mm-hmm. Are they working full time at your shop? So
basically. So Flo is doing a regular full time, and Sam is doing basically, if you deduct the teaching hours and the school hours, he's in the shop for around 30 hours per week for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And then we'll see.
And you're in the shop, 60 hours a week?
I try not to do that anymore, but that's been my standard for the last years. I try to, go down to 40 hours. I don't know how successful I am, but at least during the week I want to get home in time so I can still see my kid before she goes to bed. Because it's, if you do 1 or 2 hours too much, you're gonna come home and light's gonna be out, kids in bed, wife's in bed, you're alone, and that quickly becomes very, very dissatisfying. So for everybody, not just for me, but also for my wife and for my kid, I think. So trying to find the balance there. Just work smarter, work harder, work faster.
Yeah. I just learned to sleep less, and I start earlier. I start at 4 a.m.
Yeah, that's one way too. But I've also learned, especially in the first months with the kid, that sleep quality is also a big driver for my performance. So if I don't sleep well and I don't sleep enough, I'm basically trashed all day. Works for a couple of days, but then it's tricky finding the right balance, but challenge everybody has probably sooner or later.
Yeah, I think it seems even having more employees, you just find more ways to branch out. Like you said, now you start into more classes. And you have to feed more mouths. So, it's not like, have less work. No, we have to basically get more work done to get more money in so we can pay everybody's wages. And you're just looking at a completely different overhead now. With your fixed costs going up like crazy, and you basically are under more pressure, not under less, because you have to have really high numbers each month. Otherwise, or really high, for my for my standard for what I was used to before. But if the calculations are roughly, if a person earns 2,000 euros net, they're going to cost you over the year, including 13th and 14th wages and month wages, they're going to cost you around 4.5 to 5 grand net. So you have to get around 5k net income, which means you're going to have to make around 10k net turnover, which means you're going to have to make around 12k gross turnover. So the guy gets 2,000 euros, but you have to make 12,000 euros to just pay the bills, right? And that's the calculation that people don't really see as long as they're employees themselves. There's a lot of taxes, and turnover is not profit. Turnover is not profit. No.
Two completely different things.
So real quick, you said the 13th and 14th for the people who don't know, because my family and the American people don't know that you get paid 2 extra paychecks a year in June, in the middle of the year, for your summer vacation time and Christmas time. So you actually get paid 14 months out of the year altogether.
Isn't that great?
Here in Austria, it is. It's nice, unless you have employees,
Yeah, exactly. And the fun thing is, your employees, you pay 14 months, and the year has 365 days, and on average, the employee is only at the shop for 220 days. So there's fun. Cost calculations are fun. No, but it's part of the thing. So, but I understand why many people want to stay as a one-man show. It's not for everybody. It's not. You lose a lot of the time with the craft and gets more organizing. My whole week has been a lot of organizing, unfortunately. I mean, I've also been sick with COVID at home at the moment, so I couldn't really do anything. But yeah, it's part of the whole thing.
So with the steel production and the laminates and the classes and the workers, employees with you, what is the thing in your shop that you enjoy doing the most? Is it the classes, or do you still like to get behind the power hammer and make your own steel?
Yeah, probably the thing where I've done the most playing around and R&D is forging blade blanks lately. I played around with some new dyes, and it's still something. I've made I've made a few knives, but it's still something where I feel like there's still room for improvement, and I want to get better at forging, even if that sounds stupid. But it's something where I really want to dial in my process very, very well, and I love the R&D side of things so much. So if it was up to me, I would just be, making new dies, playing around, forging another blade or another 10 blades, and going back and iterating on that. I love designing and developing the processes. And that was part of the decision why I decided to go for growth and employees, because I think I'm really good at dialing in processes, but I'm not the best at staying at a process and repeating the process over and over again. Basically, I move on to the next process that I can optimize. And so there needs to be somebody who also, takes advantage of the processes that I develop. And that was part of my choice, or part of the decision, probably.
I think the last time I was in your shop was probably about a year ago when you were working on handles. You had bought some new milling machines or CNC machines.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I'm also excited. I have a new takedown mechanism that I have been playing around with quite some time, and it's a new takedown design that I haven't seen anywhere else, and so I want to make this one mine, have it a little bit of a proprietary design and technical feature on it. And I want to release the first proper knife with it on the next newsletter. So if anybody's intrigued, sign up to the newsletter. And those are things. The handle topic has always, so many cool things to optimize. But the handles, at some point I was like, okay, I'm not getting the dust out of my shop if I keep grinding handles on the belt grinder, and every handle is going to be slightly different, as long as you're doing this freestyle, because you grind on the left side, you grind on the right side. If you're doing low angle facets, even the slightest difference, you grind 0.5 millimeter too much on the left side, then you have to fix the right side again, or you have a tiny scratch and you have to fix both sides again. So it's never going to be completely the same, and 1 or 2 millimeters in thickness doesn't seem like a lot, but it actually feels like a lot. So I wanted to have a better way of making handles that are always going to be the same volume and the same facets and everything, so I can actually build on the design of these. And so I started to develop a process where I can make my handles on a CNC mill. It's not handle scales, but it's hidden tang handles, so basically you have to machine the whole block on all sides. And I'm really happy with that process now. Yeah, it's already less shiny now because it works. And we've done a couple of handles, probably close to 150 or so far, and that was really helpful. And also, I think it's the only way to get rid of all of the dust and the cancerous dust that you're otherwise always gonna have when you belt grind. I mean, you can always wear the mask, and that's great. But if you're doing classes, you have 6 people grinding knife handles. Your shop looks like it just snowed. No matter how how good your suction is. Usually, I haven't found a good way of remove like dust removal. Dust removal. Yeah.
Extraction.
Good. Yeah. Dust extraction. Yeah, exactly. Dust extraction. Because we have close to 10 belt grinders in the shop for our classes. So doing a dust removal system for 10 belt grinders where you might be working on, on top end, on the lower end, on different positions, we just never found a good solution to that. So I'm happy we could move it to the mill and do the handles on the mill now, where we have, one spot with really good dust removal, and there's so much less dust now.
So is that in like a dedicated room or you?
Yeah, it's a different room, and all of the milling is close to the head, so there I just have a big dust removal thing, and I have almost no dust in the room anymore now, which is really cool. Yeah, one thing I don't know, Albert, if it's the same in your classes, but I find it really hard to find a good way to protect your like a dust protection for yourself, PPE, that allows you to speak. I just kept taking the mask off, putting it back on. Belt grinders are running next to you, somebody's yelling at you, trying to find, get a piece of information, get advice, and basically I always had to take off the mask to communicate with them. So half of the time during grinding, I had my mask off at least. And at some point, you just get lazy if you're doing classes all the time and you don't protect yourself as well as you should, probably. How do you deal with that? I saw you have the VersaFlow 3M.
Yeah. But people
can you talk?
Yeah, you can, but people don't really understand you if you do.
Yeah.
Because we also wear ear protection usually in the grinding room. But what we do, or what I do, I usually take the student and we leave the grinding room and we talk about the stuff outside. And then we go back into the grinding room.
That's what I did theoretically. In reality, I just yell at them in the grinding room and don't have my mask on.
Yeah, no, I keep my mask on in the grinding room. Like
so you keep it on
all the time. But usually it's either sign language, or we leave the grinding room and we talk about the stuff outside. No, but you can communicate a lot with signs, right? So, but of course, if there's something to talk about, we usually leave the grinding room. So we go outside, talk about the stuff, and then we go back inside. Because our students also have to wear like PPE, right? So ear protection and everything.
Yeah.
Because if it's, as you know, I mean, as you've just said, if there's 10 people grinding all kinds of stuff in the grinding room, there's dust everywhere. And
it's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing this one day, I'll bet you won't die from this. But if you're doing this every day, it's really bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad, yeah.
I mean, the VersaFlow is awesome, right? So for your own protection. But of course, not all the students have VersaFlow. But when Andy and I are working together, we both have VersaFlows and we have this ear protection with a comm, so we can talk to one another. That's what we do when we're forging. So we talk to each other like all the time. So keep an eye on this guy, and do that and do this. So we can communicate with the VersaFlow, but we don't have enough money to buy like 15 VersaFlows for students. So
how many students do you take in the class? Because you're taking about 10 to 15.
10 to 15, yeah, these days.
Oh, really?
So we started with 5, then we went up to 7, and now I was joking because we fucked up once, and then we ended up with 15 students, and it turns out that we're as fast as with 7 or 8. So, And now
oh, really?
10 is our new 7. So we usually do 10.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so we have 10 places, and if there's like, let's say 12 or 13, we can also do that. If it's 15, then usually we at least 1 or 2 or 3 guys, for them it has to be the second class, so it has to be, they have to know how to operate and work in a forge. So it's not 15 newbies, but if we do 15 people, then there's like 2 or 3 that did a class with us before. Yeah, but it's I mean, to be honest, 15 people, it might be a bit too much.
Just the crowd. I mean, if I think about lunch, 15 people is gonna be crowded in my place, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, our local restaurant loves us because we go there every Saturday for lunch. We stay there for an hour during tempering, and then we're leaving. But we're like every other week we go there with 10 to 15 people. So they love us. So they always give us like gifts, like cake or coffee or whatever.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but of course it's 3 very, very long days. So especially if we have 10 to 15 people, we don't leave the shop before 9 to 11 at night. So it's very, very long days. Also for the students, obviously.
Yeah, I try to keep that, cut it a bit shorter. I try to finish around 6 to 7 p.m. now, because I just found the risk of fuck-ups increases substantially in the evening. You know, people just are drained, energy levels go down, your awareness goes down, and then once it's 8 o'clock, you know, people are hungry and tired, and they're like in the good enough mode. This is good enough now. Let's move on. And I get it.
That's why we do the safe work in the afternoon, or the less risky work. That's why we do the hand sanding and the etching. So our Damascus forging classes are 3 days, right? So we start Friday and we finish Sunday. So Friday is forging the steel, Saturday is like doing all the blade work, hardening, tempering, finish grinding, and then there's hand sanding, and that's what takes them most time, right? So they do all the hand sanding till they're done, and then we do the etching cycles in the afternoon or whenever they're done. So and that's not that risky, right? I mean, of course you can cut yourself when you're hand sanding a very thin blade, but still that's not too risky or too dangerous. And then the etching, I mean, that's
you can drop the knife. That happens. Or
yeah.
when you oil it, you'll cut your finger. That happens.
Yeah, but it's way more risky, like working on a power hammer with an angle grinder or at the belt grinder, right? So
how many belt grinders do you have? 10?
No. We have I think 6 are operational, and we have 3 more, but we don't have the space or not the workbenches to put them up.
Oh, interesting.
But we have usually we start when we have that many people, we split the class in half. So 5 to 6 people start Friday morning, and the other class starts at 1 p.m. So
you split them in.
Yeah.
So not everybody's forging at the same time.
Not everybody's forging at the same time, and not everybody's using a belt grinder at the same time. So that's why we split them.
Yeah, I thought about that too. If we ever get to the point where, you know, we don't have enough weekends in the month to to get all the classes in that we want to do. So basically, for example, if Flo is gonna take over full classes, that we could basically do this if we had if we shift the class by a day or half a day. So you could start 1 class on Friday, 1 class on Saturday, finish 1 on Saturday, finish 1 on Sunday, something like that. Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, that helped us a lot. And it's also less stressful for us, right? Because then we don't have to keep an eye on 10 to 15 people, but only like 6 to 7 or whatever. And it's more fun for the students too, because then they can forge a bit more, they can do a bit more themselves on the belt grinder and everything.
The maximum I've done so far was 7. Usually our classes have 5 to 6. So.
But you did the one all by yourself or with an employee?
No, yeah. Usually doing, like we're alternating. Flo does help me now a little bit, but I used to do it by myself. And now we're kind of alternating, and he's doing the first afternoon. So I do the forging with them, I do the blade grinding with them, and he does contour grinding and fitting the handle to the blade. So that's the way it works.
But if you've done 7 all by yourself, then that's like 14 for the 2.
It's basically the same, yeah. If you have another person who can do everything and is comfortable with that, yes, no, that would work out. That's true. Just, yeah, crowded.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you split it, it's basically 2 classes with 7 people. That's more what I could imagine too. Yeah, that's true.
So Albert talked about a couple of incidents that he had in his class. One guy trying to cut sandpaper into strips with his shear, with the big power shear. Do you have any crazy stories from class? Weird things that might happen?
Well, actually, I'm always surprised how well it works. I mean, of course, there's the thing where you like explain delicately, hit here, not here, and then the first thing they do is hit in the wrong spot. But overall, I'm always impressed by how well it works. You know, the kindergartner, the accountant coming to us with 0 experience beforehand, and after 2 days they leave with a very nice knife. And I think overall it works phenomenal, and I think we have a very nice process flow and way of explaining things by now. I've had a couple of 100 students by now, and I think with every class you learn and you want to improve how you do things and how you explain things. And yeah, not too crazy. No, nothing too crazy comes to my mind. Nope. I don't know. We got the good students.
No, that's maybe one of the aspects you might lose when you have one of your employees doing half the class, though, is like picking up on where the people are struggling and how you can maybe improve the class or make them move a little bit more smoothly. If you're not there to see it firsthand.
I think teaching a class is way more challenging than making a knife yourself, because you have to fix problems very quickly without the person kind of noticing that they fucked up in the best case, right? So if somebody goes in the wrong direction and you want to give them the feeling that, you know, it's not too bad what they did, but you need to fix the problem really quickly. So it appears like they haven't fucked up too hard. At least that's the way I want them to have a good experience, right? And go home with a nice knife. And so sometimes it can be stressful, where you're like, yeah, okay, this this is going in the really wrong direction now. I might take over for 2 or 3 minutes and fix all the problems you just made. But yeah, so it's tricky. I always say you want to be comfortable making all of the knives, all of the work by yourself. So if I have a class and I want to take 6 students, I should be able to finish 6 knives in a similar quality in the same time. And then I think you're going to be comfortable with holding the class, maybe. That's kind of how I think about it. So I can do the same number of knives in a similar quality, even if nobody shows up.
Yeah, so when I took the class with you, you had the, I don't think it was new to you, but you had an induction heater. And I think that maybe we just introduced that into the class work, because we had, we were heating up the tank to burn the handles in. And I think that was a great...
super handy for that. Super handy for that.
Great thing to make things move quicker.
Yeah. I love my induction heater. It's such a nice tool. Forging tanks is fantastic. Like if I'm just forging, like trying out the die, or even if I forge 10 blades, I have to forge 10 tapers, or 10 tanks. I love doing it on the power hammer, on the induction heater, because you can just heat it up selectively, just that part that you need, get it hot, and then, you know, as soon as you're done with the first blade, you put it aside, put on the second, Usually when I draw out the blades, I move to the gas forge because it's easier to get an even heat all along the blade when it's thin.
Mm-hmm.
But for all of the preform forging, I gravitate towards the induction heater more and more. And I want to get a second one as soon as I have the cash again.
That's something that Albert and Andy need to get.
What do you need a second one for, Tobias?
Just having different coils set up all time, and also for the classes, so we can use it simultaneously. Mm-hmm. Theoretically I could have 2 or 3 on the same power line because it's a 32 amp, but single phase. So I already have the big fat cable, and I could hook up 3 induction heaters next to each other, or close to each other on the same coolant circle and on the same power line, and having slightly different coils. Actually, I'm doing 90% on one coil, and that's fine. But having something for thinner blades, for example, maybe then I could do even the blade forging on the other coil. But then I'm usually too lazy. Your blade's almost forged out, then you don't want to change the coil. But yeah, they're very handy things, and I mean, we do want to go carbon neutral at some point, right?
Yeah.
2050, we all have to be carbon neutral. So there's one thing you can do as a knife maker to emit less CO2 to the atmosphere is using an induction heater, and I think it's really cool.
It is, yeah.
I love it. It's a fantastic machine. Very handy for if you do tang burn-ins. It's like you go to the machine, you turn it on, you heat it up for 3, 4, 5 seconds, and you can do the burn-in. There's no messing around with the torch, no, I don't know, empty gas torch. You don't have to heat up your gas forge or anything like that. It's there, it's simple, it's quick, and or straightening, bending, all of these things.
Yeah.
The heat is just always available and very localized.
Yeah, we'd love to own one, but they're so expensive.
I have the cheap version. Mine was 800
okay,
euros,
that's affordable. I mean, the one we looked at was, I think, almost 10 grand. So
yeah, I mean, I have the China model basically, and they sell it on Weaver now. It's the exact same model that I have. They sell it as I think it's a 7.5 kilowatts, or is it I don't remember. I think, yeah. Anyway, it's the small induction heater that everybody has. It's in the videos where I talked about it more. I don't remember these details very well, but you have to basically calculate probably at about twice the amount, because then you need the coolant circle if you forge a lot with it. So you need a water tank, you need a pump, and then you need to make some tools to make your coils and some copper to do the tool. So I was basically out for 1,500 euros for my induction heater. But compared to what you've described that's in your shop at this point, I think this is Rundungsdifferenz.
Yeah. Yeah, but
it's not too bad.
The one we were looking at was, as I said, 10 grand, and this would have been too much at the point.
No, I can imagine.
Why is there such a price difference? What makes it so much better?
I mean, the one we were looking at was German made, so it was from Germany, and they're extremely expensive. It was, I think, an L-Mark or something like that. The guy who was selling it wanted 10 grand for it, or asked for 10 grand, and it was too much. But if they're selling it on Weaver, hang on.
There's not too much lost. Yeah, you can buy it today. And basically, you only need the power cable, and then you can hook it up to your water line, and you're good to go. But I didn't want to run from the water line all day when I forge, so I have built the cooling system to that. And then in the winter, it's no problem because you have a tank and a pump, and it's enough, basically. You have, 40 liters of water, and the water is cold when you start, and it's fine. But in the summer, I think the machine turns off at 32, 35 degrees coolant temperature. So it goes into error mode. So if you have a hot week, your water starts at 25 degrees. So you have 7 degrees delta T which is not a lot. So as soon as you forge a few things, so then you need a coolant, some kind of a refrigeration system to get below room temperature. And that costs a little bit too.
Just look online for a Durchlaf cooler.
Not
big enough?
There are these TIG coolers. So the way I did it is I didn't buy a cooler that I could hook up directly to my induction heater, but my cooler cools my coolant tank.
Cools the tank. Yeah.
And then, so if I know I'm forging today, I just turn on the coolant pump, right? And it cools the water from 25 degrees to 15 or something. And then I'm good. But it doesn't have the full flow to power my induction heater.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds more complicated than it is, but you do need quite a bit of flow through the system. And there's a few things, but also these coolers, they're also sold on Weaver. I got one from Weaver. It's still working. It's not the greatest quality, I'm sure, and it's probably not the greatest safety things on the induction heater, but they're fun to work with. And mine has been working really well.
So is it the Weber 15 kilowatt high frequency induction oven?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I think. They claim it's 15 kilowatt, but that's peak performance. If you do the math on the 32 amps and the 230 volts, what you get out of it is maximum 7.5 kilowatts.
Okay.
Which is plenty for forging a blade or heating a tang.
It's $825.99, so that's very affordable. Yeah. Good.
By the next episode, he's gonna have one in the shop.
Yeah. Give him 2 weeks. How many square meters do you have now, Albert?
400.
400, nice. Nice. Yeah.
Including the top floor, because we have 2 floors.
Mm-hmm.
The top floor is 100 and there's 300 square meters of forging area, office and grinding room. So the grinding room is 40 square meters, the office is like 25 and the rest is forging area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, but we thought that we will have so much room, but it's
already,
it's already filled up. Yeah.
It's not too crazy. Yeah, we're on 400 and something as well, 450 or something. Grinding room is 50 square meters. Forging area it's a bit tricky. That's spread out a bit now. Probably close to 80 or 100. Then we have a finishing room now where we do the etching and there's less dust but then there's the CNC and the blasting cabinet and you need so much stuff.
Yeah.
People always astounded when I show them, we have a dedicated place where we take the photos. Of course, I mean, at the end of each knife, I have to take a photo before I can sell it or send it or whatever, right? So you need a spot where you take the photos. It's part of the work. You need a place where we can eat with the guys with the classes. You need a changing room and all of this. As soon as you start doing classes, everything explodes.
And a mini laboratory in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really need it if you just want to build a knife, right? You can build a knife on 4 square meters.
If you work by yourself, it's a whole different game. And I've made knives out of a 6 square meter shop, and I've had my, I don't know, maybe it's 9 square meters. I've had my press, my gas forge, my grinder, and my welding table, basically all in a circle around the anvil. And alone, basically, you're fine. And then I had another room where I did the drill press and the hand sanding, which was another 4 or 5 square meters. It's nicer now. We have more tools.
Yeah.
So I hear you're also going to be coming to the Knife Show Austria. Are you going to be exhibiting there with knives, or will this be exclusively Apex Ultra?
No, actually, we're going to have 2 tables, and basically I want to show all 3 stages. So Apex Ultra Raw and on the one stand, and then I definitely want to showcase all of the laminated steels that we've been producing, the forge welded steels, all of the Sanmai, Gomai, Damascus, and most of this centers around Apex Ultra anyways, so it fits very nicely in that regard. And then all of the knives I make are basically Apex Ultra, so I think it's going to be Apex Ultra, the laminates, and then the knives right next to each other. as the whole chain of what we produce. And yeah, also, yeah, we're doing more punch marks now, so it's also slowly been growing, bit by bit. So if anybody needs a custom punch mark, we're you guys.
Yeah, I think since I've known you, I don't know that you've been at a knife show. I mean, I've seen you there.
No, I haven't. I have never been to a knife show.
Yeah.
This is going to be my first knife show. I've never been exhibiting. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking while I'm doing this year, I might also exhibit at Solingen. We'll see. I haven't applied yet. Not sure. But now I already have to think about how my disc is going to look like, and if I have prints and folders and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So.
But you got 4 employees. It's good. You can sit them at the table, and then you can go walk around and mingle and make connections with everybody.
Yeah, but you have to pay them. Do I want to pay all of my employees going up there not producing anything? Or I don't think. I don't know if that pays off. We'll see. But it would be nice. Yeah, at least one guy is definitely coming with me. Otherwise, I think it's too stressful being up there by yourself, not being able to go around for a bit. But you're quite the experience. What is your recommendation? What should we do, or what's your newbie lesson? What do I do to be successful at a show?
Well, it's different for a knife maker and a supplier guy, but you're gonna have a lot of steels and supplies and stuff like that. I would say my number one thing was not to clutter everything up, try to organize it so that people can see the things right away. That's like Albert's been to shows with me, and sometimes we have stuff that you think is going to sell, and just by moving it from one spot of the table to another, all of a sudden people start buying it because they couldn't find it or they didn't see it over in the corner. Or it's crazy.
Interesting. So organize your table really well.
Yeah, organize them. I like to have prices visible, not as much as you can. Even make some signs where people can see them right away. And even with that, they still ask. But like I said, Albert was there one time. We had a bunch of steel on the table, and it didn't move for until lunchtime. When Albert's like, "All right, we're gonna move the table around." And he tried it, and it worked. He started selling some.
So is the front of the table better, or a little bit elevated better, or what's the best spot? Where do you want to put your cash cow?
Yeah, right in the front. The stuff like the most flashy thing or the most important thing for you that you want to move or bring attention to in the front. And when I make my table designs, I like to make it a design so people have to walk through. I usually make like a U-shaped thing or something, so they come in and have to walk through and around the whole table and not just walk by it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So they kind of
like a maze,
just like herding sheep through a maze.
You can't go here. Albert's standing in the way. You have to go through the U.
Yeah,
right.
The U shape helps a lot. So put some of the interesting stuff in the back, some of the flashy stuff in the front, and people start walking through your booth.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's the same method they use in supermarkets, right? So the stuff you need is in the back, like bread and whatever, meat.
Yeah.
And you have to walk through the aisles to get to the stuff you need. So
and buy the candy.
Yeah.
And the air fryer.
Yeah.
Albert, any other advices for shows? You've also been to a few, haven't you?
Yeah, but only with Keith. We've never had our own table, so we've always just been there with Keith. Yeah.
Always piggybacking on Keith.
Yeah.
One of the good things that worked in Solingen and that would work for you too, Tobias. Albert had like a big TV screen that he brought one year, and he had videos playing of him forging the steel and some of the processes. And
nice, yeah.
I think that was great for people. There was a lot of like couples that came, or they had their wives or girlfriends, and the guys would be shopping, and the girls would just be watching the TV and like kind of out of the guy's hair, so he could look through it stuff and maybe spend a little bit more time at the table.
Yeah.
Or even with kids. The kids like to watch them too.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's shiny and something moves, and it also tells a story and shows that you're the guy on the video. You're doing the work. You're standing on the hammer. You're not just a retailer. reselling some stuff that was made in Pakistan. Or are you? Yeah. At least you have a good video pretending.
Well, an AI video.
A really bad AI video. I think that would be catchy as well. Controversial.
Yeah, we last year at Solingen we were up on like the main stage, so I don't know. A lot of people didn't even know we were up there because people were walking around the floor of the table, and if you didn't look up or notice that stuff was on the stage, we kind of got hidden up there. So
it's actually detrimental or not as good as you would think.
Yeah,
right?
Not as good as I thought it was going to be. I think less business only from being on the stage. So this year I was actually looking to get in one of the TVs like Albert had, or they now make these like 3D projectors. Have you ever seen these before that they spin and make like a 3D hologram that just floats in the air? Just something to get my have my logo out or something to catch somebody's eye. So they actually notice it over there.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. But you do. You got to get table. You need tables. You need displays. You need advertising signs. You get tablecloth. So there's so much stuff. Yeah.
Right. So the first show has quite a high entry barrier. At least if you're like me, if you've never done this kind of work. That's true.
And I'm not sure what the table situation is with the Knife Show Austria, but in Solingen, if you had a booth, you have to bring everything. So I don't know if who was going to provide tables for people to have booths, so you need to bring your tables and everything also with you. I'm not sure about that yet.
I think the table are going to be regular tables, and they're going to be provided. But I think for the booth, I don't know. We have to talk to him again. I mean, I think I went away from the booth towards the table because I thought setting up the booth was going to be too much work. That's how I remember it, but I'm not 100% sure what will be provided if you take a booth. Are you going to have a booth?
I have a booth, but I still set it up like a table, like I said, just the U-shape tables all around the area of the booth. I don't have like a big tent or any of that kind of stuff, but it should be interesting.
Blow up bouncy house. I think that's the way to go. You should have a bouncy house with a knife on the table.
I already have all the fans to blow them up with. So. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, how the gas forge is selling?
Slowly.
Slowly, yeah.
Yeah, and the market's just not as big as it is in the US. And
that's true.
A lot of people have forges already. Just depends. I mean, it was a few weeks ago at Albert's. He's got the forge that I was building, the PID controlled Apollo forge, and he got it run into forge welding temperatures with 0.3 psi. It's pretty efficient.
No, 0.3 bars, 5 psi.
Yeah.
That's very efficient. Yeah.
I mean, the point I was pointing out, the bar is just the pressure. It depends on the nozzle size, so you can't compare two gas forges by the bars they run at. Just to be a pain in the butt here. Because if the one has a smaller nozzle size than the other, it's going to have more pressure, but it might still consume less or the same or whatever.
Yeah, so there is no nozzle.
I think the kilogram per hour would be the unit to go for.
Yeah, but if it's the same ribbon burner.
If it's the same ribbon burner, if you're comparing apples to apples, then completely.
Yeah, because we took the ribbon burner out of our old forge and used it in the new forge. So.
Okay, there you go.
It's the same ribbon burner.
How long is the biggest Apollo forge? Could you stick them together to make like a 2 meter long gas forge? Fully PID controlled, all zones individually?
you could. I think.
Like Anchorage forge?
Like Anchorage forge, yeah.
They did? They did
that. They did exactly that.
They have a massive one.
Yeah. Fantastic. I have to look it up.
I think inside dimension on the Apollo is like 47 centimeters or 46, something like that for the length. But Albert also has the pimped out version, the Helios, when you get it finished and running, right? Do you know what the dimension of that one is?
I think is it 120? So 1 meter and 20 centimeters, something like that. 2 ribbon burners.
What? 1 meter and 20 centimeters?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm. That's a decent size, yeah.
Yeah, but you can do some rolling with that.
But it sits on a pallet still. I have to make a stand first.
It's gonna be a heavy ass forge because the Apollo is pretty heavy.
Yeah, no, you can't lift it. I mean, it's all assembled and everything, so with all the bricks inside, and we can't lift it anymore. So we have to use the crane to get it onto the stand.
Interesting.
Well, we got an hour and 40 minutes. I think that was a pretty good show. And unless you got something else you want to add, you got some projects coming up, or you want to?
No, not really. No, I mean, I wasn't going into the show with any topics or expectations, but I think we covered a lot. Sounds good to me.
What about this Gold Vein project here? What can people? You have a website, I think people can go and see the knives.
Gold Vein Culinary. You can find us on Instagram and also on goldveinculinary.com. And check out what we've been brewing. I think it's quite interesting just to see what we've done, and obviously the price tags on these are slightly higher than what we would usually do.
To be expected with the price of gold.
To be expected with what we put in, obviously.
Yeah.
So you're also well into the 4 digits, a little bit higher, obviously, than the gold we put in. And that'll be all.
Nice. All right. So you guys can also find out more about Apex Ultra at apexultra.com. You can check out the dealer lists that you got. I think you guys got a couple of different markets: Europe, America, Australia, Asia, and Africa, I think.
Yeah, I think the only thing we're missing are the 2 poles and South America. Everything else we got covered.
Soon enough, right? Expanding.
Expanding, yeah. And check out messerschmiede-hangler.com .at for our forge welded steels. If you need a punch mark, if you're looking for a knife or any other thing, we do. And Keith over at Knife Material also has some of our forge welded laminated steels with Apex Ultra Core, so you'll find us.
Nice. Thanks for joining us. I'm sure we'll have you back on again.
Thank you. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for having me. It's always nice checking with the guys. We get around to meet way too seldom, unfortunately. So podcast is always a good excuse.
Yeah. Well, at the latest, we'll see you in May.
Yeah, we'll see you at a knife show. Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, guys. We'll talk to the rest of you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks for listening.